Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to work on a later edition of the Mitchell 300. This is actually the Mitchell 300A, and although it looks the same from the outside, it's not. And well, this actually has two versions to it. There's the earlier Mitchell 300As that were still made in France, and then you have the later ones that, well, the production was moved to Taiwan. And one of the things that you can tell a difference on the French ones, well, they have a kind of a white lettering here. The Taiwanese have a red lettering. And the other thing, interestingly enough, this has a handle that was more common on the ones that were made in Taiwan with the plastic handle screw rather than the metal one. Well, this came in because Mike said he purchased this one for only a couple of dollars. The bail does not fire. And I thought we would do this reel because this has a different bail spring setup than the other or more traditional older Mitchell 300. So we're going to show you how to service that bail. And in the process, we're going to show you how to service the reel. And in the process of servicing this reel, well, you'll learn all about it, and I'll talk about some of the differences between the two reels. Well, we're going to service the bail, and why I said you're going to learn about servicing the whole reel is that, to me, the easiest way to work on the bail is to remove the rotor. In order to remove the rotor, you have to remove all of the pieces and parts for the reel itself. So we're going to go do that. We're going to start by removing the exterior pieces and parts. The handle comes off in a direction that is opposite the way that you turn to retrieve the line. So in this case, it comes off in a clockwise manner. While I'm doing this, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you like fishing reel service and repair. If you like learning about fishing reels, their manufacturers, their uses, and well, just the reels in general, then that's what I try to cover as I show you ways to service the reels yourself. And in some cases, if they're broken, give them a second chance. This is a do-it-yourself type channel where I encourage you to try and service the reels. And well, if you have any questions and I try to answer and be responsive to those as well. We removed the 3 screws. Now on this one, you still have the single flat-bladed screwdriver slot. The later ones have Phillips head ones that usually are dark in color. Another thing you'll notice pretty much immediately is there's a gasket on the 300A that is not on the 300. All right, we're going to remove this. You can see this reel is very dry inside. I think Mike said he only paid a few dollars for it. Didn't seem to be working all that well. And the big issue that he had with this was that the bail isn't working. But of course, there's more issues to that. You can see the reel is very dry and clearly hasn't been serviced in a long time. Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to move this. You know, we have an anti-reverse doesn't move out of the way very well. Move that over to the side. We're going to pull these gears off. This is a different gear, so the parts are not interchangeable between the 300 and the 300A. This is a different gear. The top rotor is a different rotor. And all of those were modified in addition to just having your gasket put in there. All right, well, this is not unusual for what you can find in a reel like this. It's just loaded with old grease and dirt and debris. One of the best things I find to clean that up is penetrating oil. And I really don't care which brand you use, but I do suggest that you use a penetrating oil. It'll help to dissolve the dirt and grease, and it'll get the reel back on track. Just going to let that kind of float around there. This is your anti-reverse dog. This can be lifted up and off. And in some of these reels, you may find that you have a friction-driven anti-reverse dog rather than the one that you see on this reel. This is mud and gunk. And I'm going to use a flat-bladed screwdriver as a scraper to get that softened grease up and out of the case. And of course, we haven't even been close to that bail yet, but we'll get there. But I just like to kind of go in a sequence that ensures that everything gets done and that you have the best possible chances for keeping this reel fishing for a long time to come. All right, and take a paper towel to kind of get some of that dirt and debris off of. This will certainly slow down the performance of the reel, and if it gets to the point where it's carrying things like old salt, sand, and things like that, it could become the reason why a reel fails. It's soft. I'm going to use a brush now to see if I can't pull the rest of this off, getting some of those hard to get places. And then what I'll do is I'll take this towel, wipe it down, and make sure that we have all of the old grease and the like off of there. This is an iterative process. You need to work to assure that you're getting all that out. Okay, we're in good condition now. That'll spin freely by itself. I noticed when we were trying to pull that gear out that this gear has a lot of old grease and the like on here as well. So we'll do the same thing on the back side of this. This is an aluminum gear. All of the Mitchell 300 gears are aluminum. And probably one of the more complicated designs for a freshwater reel. There's a series of 4 gears in here, 5 I guess if you count the rotor, and they all interact to do 2 things. One is to spin the rotor, and the other is to oscillate the axle shaft up and down. So again, we've done the same thing here. We've sprayed it down with penetrating oil, soften it up. We've used a brush, kind of pull it out, and I'm sure that will run a whole lot easier now on the inside. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And my guess is this reel's been sitting for quite some time. He purchased this at a fishing flea market, and the fellow said, look, it's not working, just give me a couple of dollars for it. And Mike said he always wanted one of these, so there you go. For a couple of dollars, he was willing to make the investment in repairing it and bringing it back and restoring it. All right, that gear is clean. When I take my pieces and parts off, they go into a parts tray. We'll do the same thing with these two. This is, I call it a transition gear. I'm sure there's another name for it, but this works between your main gear and moving the gear that operates the oscillation slide. So it's a transfer or transition gear in my mind. And these days I'll find out the right name for it. I've been working on these for a long time. It just hasn't bothered me to go look. All right, that's cleaned. Now, there's normally a washer on the back end of this. If you didn't see it in the case, it's going to be on here. And if you can't find it, make sure that you go do some searching, because that is going to help with the way that this turns. Now, this is operating from the other side of the main gear, and this one's turning the rotor. And again, there's quite a pile of dirt and debris in here. Whatever greases and oils they use, they're long since passed. Wouldn't surprise me if this thing was dunked in the water too. It's because it's kind of muddy. All right, we're just going to clean this gear up and give it this towel, because it's certainly served its purpose. I'll grab another piece. And we'll just kind of finish that last part there. Okay, I think we're in good stead there. Just one more little shot to clean it. Maybe a bristle brush. There we go. All right. That washer I was referring to is sitting on the post here. Just be aware that that belongs there. And if it's not on the post, if it's on the back of the gear, make sure you put it back on that post. Very small washer, but again, it will run a lot smoother if it's installed there. All right, looks like we got one more piece of dirt here. Yep, we're still a long way from working on that bail, but that's okay. Here is your oscillation slide gear. That's going to move a carriage. That's going to move the axle shaft up and down. So again, you want to make sure that these are clean and free of the old greases. They are. All right, then the next thing we want to do is pull that oscillation slide. And with that out, we can remove our axle shaft. It seems like more of these older reels that I've been getting in lately have all been what I call grease choke. They've sat on the sideline for a while. The greases have all coagulated. They become just a kind of a mess, or a cleanup in aisle 7, if you will. Just requiring a lot of effort here. Okay, there's 2 screws here now that are holding on the slide channel. You want to remove these. There's a single slot in the middle of them, and if you can't grip that slot for whatever reason, you can use a small socket on it, a micro socket. But in this case, we're lucky we have the 2 of them. So we're going to bring those out. I'm going to pull up on the slide. And, well, we're finally getting to the point where we can get to the case. Look at this old dry grease here. Wow. Still doing quite a bit of cleanup here. So one more time with that penetrating oil. And then I think what we'll do, we'll go pull that rotor. And we'll go try to make that rotor do what it's supposed to do, while we're waiting for this other stuff to soften up. In this case, we got a little bit of, looks like it's pitted. I don't worry too much about that because there's only a small portion of this slide on this side that's going to connect with the axle shaft. It's right here. This is the only place that axle shaft is going to ride. So we got some tarnish or worn spots. Don't worry too much. This side is more important because that slide will run on this whole channel here. So we'll do the same thing here. As you can see, a lot of what we do in terms of servicing a reel is taking the reel apart, examining the reel, making sure that all the pieces and parts are in good condition, replacing any ones that are broken. I still don't know if that spring is broken or not inside here, or if it's just become dislodged. But we will find that out. Okay, and we'll put that in there as well. One more thing, this is a quick release spool change. This is your axle shaft. So do the same thing on your axle shaft. Clean it up. All right, now I can get to the point where I can remove the rotor and see what's going on with the bail. Now, a lot of times some folks will just jump in and do the bail, and you can do it on the reel. To me, it's just well, it becomes a happy dance. The reel moves around a lot, and there's no way to stabilize it and hold it firm while you're trying to do some of the spring sets and the like. So to me, I would just prefer to take it off, and that's why it's off. When you remove the top nut, there's a baffle plate. That baffle plate has the trip for your bail. It's going to click on this little lever here. It's going to push that in and out, and that's what's going to release the spring. There's a couple of washers underneath here. Those are set by the factory. If you find that you're changing the baffle or you're changing the rotor in a reel, you need to check on that shim washers. You may not need them all. They may ride too low or it may ride too high. If it's riding too low, it's going to just scrape all the time. If it's riding too high, it's never going to engage that trip lever. So you need to work on changing the shims if you've changed any of the parts. And that's just to make it right within the tolerances of the manufacturing specs. All right, that's off. All right. This is a different bale, as I mentioned, than the originals. If you look at an original, this is an original. You can see there's a marked difference in the arms on both sides, and there's a difference in the way that these get set. All right, we're going to take this off. That can come off like that. There's a spring on our trip lever. I want to remove the tension on that trip lever. So I'm just going to remove that spring, let it pop out here. I'm going to come over to the other side here. And in this case, where the original ones did not have a detachable bale wire, this one does. So I'm going to detach that whole wire. Just makes it easier when you go to set it. Just be careful as you pull this off. Notice that you have that little runner. Notice the position of that runner. Sometimes the best thing to do is just put that right back in there, or keep them close by. That's what's going on in my parts tray right now. All right, I'm not sure if that wants to come out or not. We'll see. All right, this one I can actually put back on here. That has one of those twist and turn bales to set that side. So we'll leave it at that. Just make sure when you tighten it up that it still has that free spring. All right, let's go over here, show you what's going on. This is your arm. Yeah, the spring is in good condition. It appears that it's just been, I think that looks like it's new. It looks like somebody didn't know how to finish putting it in and just left it there. All right, because that is new, I'm going to remove that trip lever now. Push that through this way. Now sometimes if you're having problems with the bale tripping, make sure that this is angular at 90-degree angles. It's possible that over time with all of the use that these things become way offset, kind of sticking out this way, pointing up, whatever. That will affect the way that the bale release trips. All right, put that in my tray. Just trying to keep these separated so I recall which ones are which. This is the one for the bale. Yep, the smaller one is for the bale. I'm going to leave them right up here. That's for your bale arm. Okay, this has got two sides to it. What I actually like to do on these is I like to pull the spring out a little bit. Just, not terribly, but just put a little bit of gap in those pieces like that. This has got two slots on it, but the slot that you want is going to face... Okay, I thought I'd reposition the camera. So once we set that, you're going to notice that the tag end of the screw is up here. You're going to notice that there isn't a hole in the arm for that spring, but that spring is going to lodge itself right in this little V here. So if you have this wheel, just look for the V. It's 180 degrees off of this stud here. That's where it's going to lodge. So how do you set that if there's no hole for it to grab? Well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to move this all the way over, bring it into that little hole, and bring it to the way off. I call it the neutral or the relaxed position. You want to start your screw, just like that. And now you have this tab on this side that has to clear the shoulders here. So hold this as best you can. Sometimes you have to adjust that screw to let it out a little more. And then you should be able to clear that shoulder. Almost one more turn, I guess. I guess I put it in further than I thought I did. Bring it over like that. Bring it over the second shoulder. Then bring it in. Tighten it up. And that will set the spring. I hope. Let's find out. Yeah, see how we have that fire now? And you actually have a little bit more room here to tighten down. So what's going to happen now, we'll bring this down here. And that's where it's going to intersect with that trip lever. All right, to finish the bail work on this, you want to take the arm and then insert it here. As I said, it's got a twist to it. Bring it over. Get the line guide piece. Put that on. Bring your bail wire over. And let's just tighten this up then. Well, while I'm doing that, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel in particular, maybe you're working on one and kind of trying to figure it out, just leave those questions in the comments section. I will try to answer those for you. All right, there's a little bit of grease on this, so let's show you how to reset that trip lever then. This is your trip lever. You're going to bring it in angularly. You're going to bring it down first to pass through the case, and then bring it up and over. Then you want to align the hole in that trip lever with the hole in the bottom of the rotor. I'm going to use a screw starter here. This is a Klein tool. I think this tool has made Dick out in Pennsylvania famous because, well, he sent it to me. I use it all the time, and I just like to tell him thank you every time I use it. All right, so that's how the trip lever is going to work now. So let's bring this over. Manually set it here because we don't have the spring attached yet. To set that spring, you can either use a small screwdriver or pliers or your hands, depending on if you have big hands or not. I'm just going to use the micro pliers. You bring it over, you bring it back here. Now, as I mentioned, this baffle plate is going to hit this. Going to hit it back here, or it's going to hit the baffle plate, and it's going to trip your bail. There you go. All right, that's the bail set. Let's come back here and clean up the rest of this case. The penetrating oil has done its job. Got a little bit more to do here, and then we'll reassemble the reel. We'll get this one back out there fishing again. So this reel was made in the late 1970s. It's kind of the last gasp effort from Mitchell. Mitchell was not doing well financially. The reason why it was going bankrupt was that its distribution partner in the United States, Garcia, wasn't doing well. And of course, if you've got they call it critical mass, but if you've got a majority of your sales going to the U.S. through a distribution partner and he's not buying because of the financial conditions of that company, then you're kind of in that food chain. It's going to affect you. It did affect Mitchell. Mitchell went bankrupt. The company that acquired Garcia went back and bought the bankrupt Mitchell company. Go figure. Twist of fate, huh? All right. As I mentioned on the other one, there is a shim washer. This one's over here on this one. And what we're going to do is just make sure that the gear on the pinion turns the rotor is all cleaned. And now we can start the reassembly. We're going to use fishing wheel grease. I use Penn Precision wheel grease, that's the blue grease here. And we'll start the reassembly process. I'm going to start right away with just putting that rotor on there. The rotor simply goes on. Now we take the shim washers that we had on that baffle plate, that goes next. And again, if you're changing that baffle plate, if you're changing the rotor, just make sure to check for the measures on the plate itself. You may not need all of those shim washers, or you may need more. We'll show you how the trip lever works as soon as we get this nut on here. You want to hand thread these because you don't want to cross strip it. And even though parts are fairly still common for this reel, given that it's 45 years old, you still don't want to go searching for them. Still can't get that set. Just be patient. Eventually, there you go. Eventually you'll get it set. And this is a Mitchell tool to tighten that nut here. You don't need the Mitchell tool, but you do need a deep socket to get that tight. Okay. So on the baffle plate, you have a tag end that's facing down. When we go to trip, you're going to notice that that trip lever that we just installed there is going to show up right there. That's the intersection right there. It's going to bump that hook. That's what's going to cause it to fire. There you go. There we go. All right, let's put it back together. I hope you're enjoying this. If you're enjoying this, again, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to that channel, again, please use that notification button. That will let you know when I'm posting. The only place the axle shaft is going to travel is in this slot here, and on that back, as we noted. On this slide assembly, you're going to notice you got something that looks like field goal posts and a slot. The slot faces down. Center the two screw holes with that carrier. Grab those two screws that you took out earlier. And I'm going to use that screw starter to get that going. I only use it to get it going. I do not tighten it fully down. This is a split blade. And if you start torquing down with a split blade, you could bend it out of position. How do I know that? I've done it. Okay. All right. Let's grab that flat-bladed screwdriver to finish that off. Next up, then, we want to put some grease onto the slide. That's where our slide is going to operate. Bring our axle shaft and put a little bit of grease onto the axle shaft, but you've already greased the cavities. Bring the axle shaft in and down. You'll notice that there's a hole in there, right in the bottom of the axle. That's where the slide comes into play. The slide has a stud on the bottom that's going to go in that hole. You want to get grease on the back side of this, in the grooves, and on the face. Bring that over and make sure that you're in the hole with the slide. Bring that down. On the oscillation gear, you're going to find that there's 3 studs on the back. Make sure that you grease the gear up. That'll be turned by what I call the transition gear. To me, if I bring the slide down and have those 3 studs facing down, generally that seats this correctly. And you want to make sure that it's seated correctly. If you have it in a different position, it's not going to make the full cycle. So just test it, make sure that it's going the right way before you close that end up. Okay, that's that side. Let's come over here. We'll set the rest of this reel. First up is your main gear. Grease on the axle shaft. grease on both sides of the teeth. Again, that big wheel up top is going to turn your rotor. The small gear here is going to turn that gear that's going to turn the oscillation gear. One I call the transition gear or the transfer gear. One of these days I'll go and look it up. Okay, main gear goes in. At this point I generally like to put that anti-reverse dog in. Next you'll notice how that spring is facing up. There's actually a hook end on this and a little stud that it rides on here. I'll put that in next. I like to move this to the off position. That's actually the on position. Bring your dog over and seat that onto the stud, and then this spring rests inside the case, just like that. Now we can get that hi-hat. Again, grease on both. That sits on the post there. Then our pinion gear, or our rotor gear. So interestingly enough, Garcia Mitchell was located about 25 miles from where I live. They were up in Teaneck, New Jersey. They were, that was their main distribution site, and well, long closed now. Put the gasket on next. Make sure you work it in under those gears. Bring that over. Align the holes. Get those side plate screws. Well, that was a long way to get to show you how to do the bail, but it's important. A lot of folks will remove that bail just because, and then the spring pops out or they get lost, they never saw it. And again, if you're searching for a hole for the end of that spring to go in, you're not going to find it. And that can make things a little bit awkward. One more here, goes in the bottom. Now there is a drag washer in that stack. We'll show you that. People wonder about the drags in the Mitchell. Put that handle on first. Okay, here's your drag washer. This one has a spacer in it. This is a plastic spacer that allows you to use less line. Here's a compression piece for your sensitivity on your drag knob. Here is a Teflon washer. Seems to be pretty well compressed. But that acts as a drag washer, and there's also one underneath here. So you want to pay attention here. There should be one under here. Yeah, you can see it. It's well worn as well. Okay. Just to put it back together again, when you put this on, you need to turn it to make sure that your click ratchet, this little spring here, clears. It looks like that got bent. Okay, back with your Teflon washer. There is a flat side here. Find the flat side on this adjuster. Bring that back together. This is an aluminum spool. The earlier ones were the painted ones. Another change between the two models. Let's put this on. Noticing that I can tighten this up a little bit. Okay, time for a final test. So what did we do? We showed you how to fix the bail, but we took the long way around. We showed you that the best way that I recommend to fix your bail is by removing the rotor. Well, to remove the rotor, you have to remove all the pieces inside the reel. When we opened it up, it's a good thing that we did, that we didn't just jump to fixing the rotor, because we saw that there was all kinds of old dried greases and the like in here. So we took care to clean all of that, inspect all those pieces and parts, and re-lubricate them before we put it off. We removed the rotor. We showed you how the baffle assembly works, how that trip mechanism works. We showed you how to take the trip mechanism off and reinstall it. We showed you that this is a little bit different of a bail than the ones that are on the original 300s, not only in looks, but the original 300 has a hole for the tag end of the spring to ride in. This one rides in a V inside that carrier. So we explained the differences there, showed you how to put it back together again, and well, let's give it a test. That's the off position. This is the on position. Yep, and our reverse is working. This works nice and free and easy. Okay, let's make sure that bail works. That's what this was all about. Yeah, see how it works now? Nice and easy, smooth, ready to go fishing again. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you found it educational. That's what this channel is about. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, and EMTs, and everybody involved in doing the public good, keeping us out of harm's way. And well, I want to thank you for watching, and again encourage you to subscribe. If you like this video, please like it, and please stay watching. There's more to come, all kinds of reels, and hope that if this is not the one you're looking for, the one that you're looking for will show up in the near future. I want to wish everybody great times on the water and fast, fun fishing. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.